Hey everyone, so I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea about how to keep your birds cool when temperatures start to rise in the summertime, especially if you live in Arizona like me, where it can get up to 120 degrees sometimes. So, first and foremost, definitely want to keep an eye on what the temperature is. So, I would always recommend keeping a thermometer in the cooler or hotter parts of your coop. That way you can monitor the temperature. So here I've got 9 birds, and with this coop I've got about 64 square feet. Hi, Blue. And so another thing that I do is I've got a swamp cooler here, and this is something you can find at Home Depot for about $200. Works pretty good. You can actually use a hose hookup. It was one of the only couple, or 2 or 3, that were about that price point that came with a hose attachment, so that you can plug it directly to your garden hose. Don't have to fill up the reservoir over and over again. But with this coop, you'll see I've got basically an open air setup. That way they're not getting cooked alive in there. Another thing that is a work in progress is I have a garden on top here, and so I've used sheet metal on the bottom. That way it's waterproofed. And then probably the most important part of the setup here, I've got the adapter here so I can plug into the mister system, and I use a calcium inhibitor, that way that the misters don't get plugged up. But basically, if I want to turn the misters on, I'll just switch it that way, and then when it's switched on here, then it's going to run to the swamp cooler. And then I also use a pressure regulator, because they don't want you to have anything above 65 psi. And so this little thing I bought, you can find it on Amazon for about $80, and comes with the misting system. But this is really handy. You can set it up for intervals of how often, how long, 4 minutes each for me, what time you want it to start going off. So I've got it set for 10 a.m. when it starts to warm up. So really cool. And then when it's on auto, you can basically have it take care of itself. And so this is going to fill up my swamp cooler every hour, and it's also going to turn on the misters, and that keeps my temperature down really considerably. I'm talking like 20 degrees of difference, especially when the swamp cooler is running in conjunction with the misters. It really makes a big difference. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the manual setting here, which if you don't have anything scheduled, you can just push this on and do it. Now the birds are probably going to scatter out of here. They don't really like to be misted on. So I've got the misting rigged higher, mid-level, and mostly in the center part of the cage. So sometimes they'll come out with the mist. It doesn't always bother them enough that they need to stay sheltered in here. And then if you're wondering about the nest box, this is something I got for about $130, self-assemble from Walmart. Thought it was a pretty good value. You can also close the nest boxes up, so if you don't want them going in there to sleep at night, I've got roosting bars that are set up on the opposite end, and that's where I try to get them to sleep, and they've actually only been put out there a couple times and they're already starting to go on their own. But also whenever it's misting, they'll come and run out and eat some of their food, because they just go crazy whenever it's wetted down. But I try to keep multiple water sources. I think I've got about 5 different watering sources together. So that way there's no competition. They've got a couple of different places to eat. and generally they tend to get along, even though I'm pretty sure I have two roosters. One of them is the blue silky and the other is the black Australorp, which you might have seen with the large red comb. Pretty obvious as far as roosters go. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you use a setup like this in Arizona, highly recommend it. I haven't actually experienced the dead of summer with this, so it'll be interesting. I might need to bring out some frozen 2-liters and just kind of double down on what I've already done already. But so far, I think this will probably keep it pretty comfortable for them as long as they stay in that little shaded area. I also used a solar board material that they use on roofs in between that and the siding, so that actually adds a protective layer. You can actually see it right here. This is the solar board material I used, and then just your standard Home Depot siding. So altogether, I think this coop to make probably was about $1,000, maybe a little bit more. And it costs just as much as that manufactured coop we got from Shopper Supply here in Apache Junction. So you could absolutely make your money go further if you're willing to spend about 20 to 30 hours worth of time on the project. And I also have a roof here just for an added layer of protection. Definitely a work in progress. I'm gonna get it fixed up a little better than what it is right now with just a clamp. So